Greetings, fellow Albuquerque-verse residents. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
As we wait with bated breath for the final season of Better Call Saul, we thought we'd reminisce over the predecessor to our favorite prequel series, Vince Gilligan's masterpiece, Breaking Bad. Focusing on the good elements, pure as Heisenberg's blue sky. The bad stuff, whack as Jesse's chili pea, yo! And the moments that ended up breaking through the medium of television, like the hydrofluoric acid through a ceiling. Join us as we talk brass tacks with the good, the bad, and the breaking. Okay, Dragon. Wow. So obviously Breaking Bad has been a kind of a touchstone of our partnership here. Like, it was like that along with like Cartoon Network and a couple other things I feel like are sort of like the genesis of you and me kind of like coming together as podcast hosts. Weirdly enough though, Dragon, we have never done an actual podcast about Breaking Bad itself. Of course we have covered 5 seasons of Better Call Saul. So we've got that under our belt, but Dragon, this idea, the good, the bad, and the breaking, this harkens all the way back, man. All the way back. I honestly want to say you pitched this idea to me like within the first month or two that we were working together. It's just kind of like a general, like, hey, here's an outline of things we could potentially do at some point. Am I right in the timeline on that, Dragon?
I mean, pretty much. I don't know if it was in the. I pitched you a list of ideas, but I'm pretty sure it would have come into. I don't know if it would have. I assume it came into the fray after we did the first season of covering Better Call Saul, which would have been the second year into our thing. So
I feel like
I'm just saying
earlier than that, but I don't know.
I mean, it
possibly
could have been. All I can tell you is that the intention was that we would do it at the after Better Call Saul as like a way of covering Breaking Bad, but so I say the only thing we've ever covered with Breaking Bad before this point was the Breaking Bad the Christmas special pitch.
Oh my god, that's honestly kind of fucking quaint that that's the only thing we've done that's directly and the
only thing that's like
obviously El Camino as well.
That is okay. That's technically that's the most serviceable.
Yes,
sure, yes, but
I'm really honestly kind of shocked that you and I have not done a top 10 episodes. I really am.
Well, again, perhaps once we get to the end of things, as we close the chapter on the Albuquerque verse, we can reopen a few pages. I don't know.
Well, honestly, I think a really interesting thought experiment would be to be like, to do like the top 20 Albuquerque verse episodes.
Might be too difficult. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I'd be up for the challenge.
Like 120 episodes. That's a lot.
Yeah, I'd be up for it. I just. Anyways, we're getting off track here right away. So, yeah. Dragon, really simply, like initially, this was going to be going through every episode of Breaking Bad, but number one, we don't got time for that. And number two, honestly, it was kind of hard to justify a bad thing for every episode. So screw it. We're going through the seasons, Dragon, and I feel like this is a really fun, kind of unique way to talk through the seasons, because I feel like with Breaking Bad, most people just kind of focus on like, either like the fact that it's like a big groundbreaking show, or they kind of like a lot of people like to zero in on specific episodes. And Dragon, I feel like our format does kind of like, it really does cover the broad spectrum here. So what we're doing here, folks, I feel like the name is very self-explanatory to a certain extent, but just to cover the bases, we're going to be going over the good, which is kind of like all the really good stuff, all just the generally like, not necessarily groundbreaking per se, but all the great ingredients that kind of like make the season what it is. And then, Dragon, honestly, the thing that I'm most interested in is the bad, because we are one of the few people to, actively have a bad category in our Breaking Bad discussion. And that's bold of us, Dragon. That's bold of us. So the bad is exactly what it says. It's like what elements of the season are kind of holding the season back. And the breaking is like Dragon. It's the blue meth of the show, right? Is that
pretty much? Yeah, these are the moments that really put Breaking Bad on the map in a huge way. These are like basically the breaking would be the iconic moments of television history that occurred within Breaking Bad. That's pretty much
that's a good way to put it.
It's like those like again the groundbreaking moments of television.
All right, so without further ado, Dragon, let's get right into it with season 1. I guess generally speaking, do you want to do kind of like a thesis statement on season 1? I know we hadn't really planned on it, but
no, we did plan on it, Tiki.
Oh, did we? Oh, is it? Do we? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
This is what happens when we don't read things. But yes,
I know you're right. You're very right. Okay. I will let you go as I look up this format that there's more of than I thought there was.
Anyway, so overall, just to kind of give some general thoughts and like reflecting on the seasons of Breaking Bad, just to reflect on season 1. Looking back on the Albuquerque verse, looking back on now it's an Albuquerque verse. Before it was just Albuquerque. Season 1 of Breaking Bad, to me, is like, I feel it's the indie movie season. Breaking Bad is like a cinema on television. It's a very cinematic show. It kind of becomes that way over time, especially. I feel season 1 is very much the indie movie season, you know?
I absolutely get that vibe, for sure. I remember I first picked this season up at Target on DVD, kind of like vaguely knowing about it, only knowing that it was like, oh, the dad from Malcolm in the Middle making meth. I don't even think I knew the cancer side of it. So yeah, it was really just kind of like a catchy, like intriguing premise that did have an indie movie vibe to it, for sure.
Yeah, I feel season 1 in total it's a great character piece for the arc of Walter White, and it establishes the premise very well, which we'll get into. I think it has some very impressive storytelling at play, even in its infancy. It's a clear and direct season goal. The motive, especially motive wise, like we're not quite full on into the moral ambiguity yet. That comes next season, but we're getting there. We have a little, like maybe a few trickles of it here, but then it's going to really flow into the series as it goes on. It's like all the moral ambiguity of, oh man, I'm so so enamored.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, the way I found the show, I guess since you brought it your way, I came, it's so funny. Many of the iconic TV shows I come into towards the tail end. Like, my first episode of Seinfeld was the last episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And with Breaking Bad, they were talking about the wrap-up, and essentially it was like when they were doing the big marathon as they were premiering the last episode of Breaking Bad. And they were airing all of them from the beginning. So I watched the first season in that marathon.
That's actually a pretty legit DVD. That's a pretty legit way to watch it, dude. That's a pretty legit first time.
Yeah, I watched where, honestly, the first season was supposed to end. I watched up until Grilled pretty much in a night because I was so enamored by it. And then I couldn't watch the rest of it because it just kind of played 24 hours and I couldn't miss out on anything. So then I got the seasons on DVD, and then, well, here we are.
All right. So yeah, it's interesting that you and I kind of had both perspectives. This is one of those shows I vividly remember watching with my dad every week and just obsessing about. Dragon, it's safe to say it filled the void left by Lost by a long shot. I definitely remember that. Like we were looking for something to replace Lost. Lost was coming to an end after 6 seasons, and oh boy, did this ever just go above and beyond anything that Lost was ever capable of. I love Lost, but anyways, Dragon. So yeah, let's get right into it. Let's get to the good.
Yes. So right off the bat, the thing I think one of the great aspects of the show, the premise. Which what other place should we start? We got to talk about the premise. A very intriguing sell of a pilot. Heck of a strong pilot. Chemistry.
Let's talk that cold open, dude, because I feel like cold opens in a lot of ways define the show. And this is the cold open in the pilot episode is honestly up there with the best of them.
It all started with a pair of pants.
Right. It just kind of like throws you in, like, oh my god, what's going on? The dad from Malcolm in the Middle, and he's making meth, and he doesn't have his pants, and he's got a gun. Oh my god!
See, now that we've been spoiled. See, now that we've been spoiled in entertainment, so. so many people constantly nowadays, the people who've seen it all, saying, "You know what I'm getting tired of? I'm tired of starting things in the middle of the action." But this is how you do that.
No,
You
this was first of all, I will never get tired of that as long as it's done right. Yeah, it can be done poorly, but if it's done right, like Breaking Bad does it, it's a hell of a plot device. Secondly, like I said, Dragon, I feel like this, like, not only did this define Breaking Bad's identity, but I feel like Breaking Bad in its own right kind of like set the groundwork for not necessarily starting in the middle per se, but just cold opens, like, in general. I mean, Lost would do cold opens from time to time, but not as often as you might think, honestly. Like, with Lost, the only ones that I can really remember that were super effective were the season premiere cold opens. Like, those were honestly the only ones where they went out of their way, like, okay, like, here we go. What crazy shit are they going to do for the opening this season? But no, with Breaking Bad, it was like practically every episode is some sort of like catching, hook.
Yeah, but just again, as you kind of circled around, I mean, just your premise, like your cell line for the show. Okay, high school chemistry teacher, he turns 50, gets stage 3 lung cancer added to his laundry list of many mundane and financial woes. He puts his chemistry to good use and makes meth in an RV to support his family when he's gone. I'm hooked, man. How do you not see?
That
I gotta
RV,
know what happens
by the
next.
way, that RV was like the third main character in the show in the early days, dude, and I loved
for sure.
it.
Absolutely. So I want to mention this about since so rarely do we talk about Breaking Bad from kind of the point of Genesis, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you're familiar with, like, what gets us Breaking Bad in the first place, right?
You know what? Honestly, not totally.
Well, let me tell you, it's just a little.
I mean, I know Vince Gilligan was on the X-Files. That's about it.
Well, knowing as familiar as we are Breaking with the Albuquerque-verse, but especially Better Call Saul. I mean, it's kind of now we know all the writers by name thanks to Better Call Saul.
Of course.
So Vince Gilligan and good old Tom Schnauz.
So
I completely forgot that Schnauz was the writer on the other end of the phone. Because I'm so used to Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. It's like, so Vince Gilligan and Tom Schnauz worked on the X-Files together. So at the end of the X-Files job, pretty much like tail end of the, probably drifting into the early part of the 2000s, which again gets us close to that 2007, 2008 vein for Breaking Bad. They're kind of calling each other post X-Files, and like, well, what's the next job? We had a lot of fun on that show. Now it's over. What do we do next? And Tom Schnauz
got something else, man.
So Schnauz brought up this article. It's a real life article about somebody who essentially was cooking meth in an RV in a Winnebago.
Yeah.
And this kind of led Schnauz to make a joke on the other end of the phone to Vince Gilligan. Well, we could always cook meth in a Winnebago. And this gave Vince Gilligan the light bulb, and he entertained it, and he kind of worked backwards from the idea, like, why would someone do that? How does someone get there? How does this work? Which then, of course, character-wise led to the famous quote, put on every bumper sticker you ever see. I'm going to turn Mr. Chips into Scarface. Yes.
Yeah.
And then Bob's your uncle. And to me, the thing with the show Breaking Bad, the reason I hesitate on Breaking Bad until the very end, essentially, it was a stupid reason. We've all had our stupid moments.
Oh God, tell me.
It was. I mean, basically, it's kind of our title image. I made a judgment call, and it was a wrong one. Where the fact is, the show was not what on first. I mean, when you hear, oh yeah, Breaking Bad, it's kind of this drug-based show. Where I'm thinking, this. Ultimately, this was the fact that this show.
You think it was like fucking what the hell is that Netflix show that I disowned?
Oh yeah, you mean Disjointed?
Yes. Did you think it was like that?
I didn't think it was. I thought it was like maybe. I thought it was like kind of like another Weeds or something.
Okay, well, you know what? To be fair, it was kind of another Weeds. It was just.
And I want to be clear. I'm saying at the time I thought it was like another Weeds, but that's another show. It's a very drug heavy show I don't care about. And of course, if had I given Weeds a chance, honestly, it might be pretty good.
I think you'd enjoy the first 4 seasons of Weeds. That's all I'll say.
My point is, my assumption is, okay, when someone says it's a drug show, I'm thinking the perspective, okay, this is ultimately what the show is not. The fact the show wasn't about junkies and stoners and drug culture, but more so the motives behind it and the compelling everyman that we see in our lives as like the center point. He's a guy with relatable problems who gains sympathy and engrosses an audience. Like that, to me, was that's what really impressed me with the show. Like completely, any expectation I had, basically, I went into this thinking it was going to be the Jesse Pinkman show, which ultimately becomes a good thing by the time El Camino comes around. But in its infancy, is like if Jesse Pinkman were the lead of this show in season 1, it's like I don't know if I'm going to stick around and watch this thing. Walter White being our main guy, I'm there.
I feel you.
Like I was expecting like the Badger show, pretty much. That's kind of what I was expecting. Like a bunch like Jesse and his friends just kind of hanging around doing stuff like that. But thankfully, it was not that show.
I would watch a spin-off of that, though.
Now the credibility's been built in there, but I'm saying at the time, had that been the show, I would have clicked it off.
All right, so speaking of Cranston Dragon, I mean, yeah, so first of all, the casting, this might be one of the most lightning in a bottle, ingenious casting decisions ever in the history of TV.
In a lifetime role, truly.
I mean, Bryan Cranston already... he already had an iconic role. He already was going to have a generation of people who knew who he was, But it's just... So, yeah, this was absolutely... What I love about it, Dragon, is that I feel like the show, at least very much in the first season, Dragon, it does play around, obviously, as the show goes on, the shades of Hal very much fade away. But I really do feel like in the first season, they're kind of playing around with the Hal thing a little bit, with, how domesticated Walt is.
Certainly. Of course, the big draw with Cranston being he's playing against, the Malcolm in the Middle Hal image, and we're grounding that archetype with real problems.
It's what if Hal, with all his problems and his nightmare of a wife, what if he actually snapped?
Exactly.
What if he just didn't take it anymore?
Basically, what if we didn't laugh? What if we did almost like a WandaVision thing, really? We don't laugh off. Like, what if we mess with the laugh track? Is no, these are
right, yeah.
This is not a funny situation. But basically, what if we made it a drama? And my relationship with Cranston at the time of this, here's the thing. Every time people were talking about Cranston for years, it was always bad. It would be about Breaking Bad, but my reference point with Cranston was pretty much, I think, what people were going into the show with years ago, where I was not a fan of Malcolm Mill. I liked it when Cranston. I liked Cranston's parts on, especially the thing. I knew Cranston from his appearances on TV. Like I knew him as Tim Whatley on Seinfeld. It was Tim Whatley on Seinfeld. The big thing I loved him for was voicing Jim Gordon in Batman Year One. That was 2011. Mm-hmm. So, and the other hook I had for Breaking Bad, outside of all the buzz and everything, and the Cranston of it all, and the fact it was going to come to an end, is that when you look at season 1, which is him so different from how he looks by the end of things, he resembles it's like the Jim Gordon he played in Batman Year One. He had the mustache, right. He had the hair. It was like, oh my god, I got to see him play in live action in some way, shape, or form. And seriously, 2 scenes in the pilot, you look at him basically the image we have before us here, him holding the gun. And him throwing matches in the pool. Those are Year One images. So I was, again, that was going to help draw me, and I stayed for the story.
Sure. All right.
I think the scene I love most of the moment when Walter White truly came alive for me in the episode, in the pilot, was that heartbreaking car wash scene where we see the struggling chemistry teacher and he works at a car wash, and that moment where Bogdan comes in there, is just, Walt, my guy quit. I need you. It's Bogdan. We talked about this, and he forces him to wash the car. And whose car is it? It's one of the punk kids that he teaches in his chemistry class. That's the moment my heart just absolutely broke and fell in love with that character. Oh my god, this poor guy! Just that humiliation, knowing how these little humiliations really stick in Walt's craw. That's a huge, powerful moment for that character to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. And then, yeah, like you said, I mean, the arc, he's not quite Scarface. He's got a long way to go by the time season 1 ends. But we do have a particular moment that we'll get to, and, a couple other things that really do build a foundation for what's to come.
Yeah, but gild the lily a little bit. So just, again, season 1, very much the Mr. Chips, the Scarface thing. So where we are in that arc is he's prime. Honestly, and we'll get into this as we go further also. I mean, just in kind of our little odyssey here.
Oh, we'll definitely be tracking the Mr. Chips to Scarface ratio throughout, I assume.
In kind of our little Albuquerque odyssey, if you will.
Right.
I would say at this juncture in season 1, he's primarily doing this for his family. There's like little hints at the deeper reason. Like, for example,
Kyle approves.
Yes.
That's a reference that absolutely no one's going to get, but I don't care.
Anyway. But, I mean, like, moments for me, like, the other moment that Walt came alive for me ever since that really kind of glommed onto what the character was when Walt stood up for Walter Jr. at the bully in the pants store, and, the family first outlet store, where it's like, you're having trouble walking, and, if you're going to take a shot, take it. So, and then, of course, what he does, the Ken wins, like, stuff like that. These, like, little hints at, okay, there's a deeper reason why he's doing this. Like, this is like a guy who's been kind of, like, kept down in life, who's getting unchained in those moments. So, and, within the season, we get to see Walt going, especially towards the latter half of it, he's trying to keep Walter White separate from the business and the drug lords of it all. And, of course, this ultimately leads to Heisenberg, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then let's see, moving on. Let's talk the Albuquerque setting, Dragon, which I really do think is, like, one of the big feathers in Breaking Bad's cap. I mean, it's so insanely cinematic. It's like, if you go out and shoot Albuquerque with a fucking camcorder, it's going to look cinematic. You know what I mean?
Yep. Again, the first image of the show, it's pants and then an RV against the Tahajali, man. Like, that's a unique set. You don't put these three, RV, pants, and Tahajali. I wouldn't put those three together.
Right.
Who's going to put an RV in a desert?
I just like the desert setting just absolutely just kind of like defines the show. It definitely has, I feel like they must have intentionally picked the desert setting for, like, the themes of isolation and kind of like the how the desert's notorious for deep crime happening in the desert and stuff like that. It's like,
sure, especially that's a big thing in Nevada too. Nevada deserts are where, like, all the crime happens. But for me,
one time I actually, my family actually got lost driving through the Nevada desert.
Oh, crazy!
Yeah, that's funny.
So, but for me, I think it is ultimately. I don't know how intentional this was, but I think thematically, at least the way it comes across, is that the desert, the desert is always kind of evoked, the spirit quest, the ultimate trials and epiphanies. So I think very much that's very unified with Walt's character arc. Mm-hmm. He has all his realizations. Think about it, even just like looking broad spectrum. You look at it here. We start in the desert with Walt, where he kind of really comes into his destiny here, and of course, I won't say too much about it, but by the end, season 5, he has a really big moment in the desert as well.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's very, very cyclical in that regard. But yeah, so this in season 1, we explore Albuquerque even more as we go on, particularly season 2. But so far, season 1, we have very few montages in season 1. I kind of forgot about that when I was re-exploring it. So we have, like, roughly 3 montages. Maybe
that's
like
kind of shocking.
There might be another one snuck in there, but essentially we have 3 montages. And the third main montage is when Jesse's selling all the product, and that's how we explore Albuquerque. And here's the cool thing about it. If I were to make an analogy, Albuquerque it's Star Wars on Earth.
It's good analogy. Yeah,
it's the lived in it's a lived in space. Every structure has a story, has like a secret, has a history. And like
totally.
Plus, we have all these other great locations outside, just like we have our familiar locations that we now live in with Better Call Saul, like the dog house and, and the laundromat, and, we go to, like, Wendy's Motel here. And, we have, like, Jesse's aunt's house, like all these kind of fun locations.
One of my personal favorites is, like, the chain Mexican restaurant that they go to in Confessions.
Right. And also we have, like, I don't know if did we ever go to Taco Cabeza, or did we just talk about it?
I don't think we ever go there.
I'm pretty sure we just talked about it.
Yeah,
I know we went to the mall. I'm pretty sure we went to the mall at least once, but I don't think we ever did Taco Cabeza. But yeah, so I love that. Just look at the high school, for example. High school, very big in the early seasons. JP Winnie High School. It's unromanticized. These locations, they're unromanticized locations, but they have so much character to them because of that fact, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Certainly.
Like, there's no gloss to it, it definitely, like, lacks that sort of, like, network TV vibe, and I also feel like, just generally speaking, the lighting in the show throughout is fucking fantastic.
One scene I got to talk about, this kind of blends the whole Cranston performance, but also a little bit of the Albuquerque verse setting. The mustard stain. This is a huge moment. The mustard stain is kind of a symbol for Walt. It's kind of like I've always wondered what this. Ever since I watched it way back, when I was wondering, man, why is he zeroing in on that mustard stain? And I think years later, it kind of dawns on me that mustard stain. This is where I overanalyze things, folks.
Oh God,
it's that it's kind of a symbol of it's the symbol of mundanity versus the excitement. And the way we frame it as like the most intense thing ever. When of course he gets the cancer diagnosis, but he's zeroing in on the mustard. Why is he doing that? Because this is a man. This is the closest thing. It's an inevitability. And the mustard thing is the only thing to look at because it's just everything else is, everything else is just like he's just burned out. Like life has burned him out. So like, oh look, a little mustard stain. This cancer news it's like the latest insult in a number of insults. So what is this going to do to me?
You see, the way I've always read that scene is that the pointing out the mustard is like the one thing that he felt he had some semblance of control over in the moment.
That's an excellent point. And the great thing, too, I was going to kind of mention as well in conjunction, is that the mustard is a great counter-opposite. It's a great setup to the last stain we're going to have in the Breaking Bad story. And there's a stain that Walt's pointing out and has control over, as you said, to another stain that Walt has control over, and, he leaves it.
You know what? Honestly, I don't quite know what you're referring to. I'm sorry.
The stain that Walt makes at the very end.
Oh, okay.
Think the opposite of mustard, but
yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm dense.
Anyway, so point being, but the main reason
also I like how it directly sets up like mustard yellow, folks. This is this guy's color.
Well, anyway, so the reason I bring up the mustard stain is that the other way you look at it with the whole mundanity versus excitement. Yeah. Okay, so he's zeroing in on mustard stain, which is very mundane, and behind Walt in this scene is very famously it's the painting of, at least it looks like the mountain range of Albuquerque. So it's like it's behind him. So like destiny is calling to him in this moment, the way he's framed. So we literally framed it as exciting as possible for the possibilities that are in Walt's head behind him, in a sense.
Sure.
So yeah, and of course, no one internalizes like Cranston. My God, but yes. Speaking of some good stuff Cranston's doing, we've talked up Cranston a lot. We got to talk about as well as Cranston.
Aaron Paul.
Yes.
Yeah, I science. Like with Aaron Paul, I feel like Need for Speed was a very unfortunate first post Breaking Bad movie for him to do, and I feel like it's kind of tainted the rest of his career, and I feel really bad for him.
What's funny?
What?
I'm sure the diehard fans of this show are going to tell you this, but the Birds of Prey show. No, not the one with Harley Quinn kids. No, the original Birds of Prey TV show only lasted a season. Way back when, before there was really a CW. I'm talking like pre-Smallville. There was a show, and Aaron Paul was like in the pilot playing the basically kind of the bad guy.
What the bad? What?
Aaron, well, if it was like he was like a
no,
guy
I'm just saying I'm surprised that he wasn't like a kid back then.
He was. I'm saying he was like a kid at a party. He was like making a move on the girl. It was like he was
kind of a bad guy in that situation. God. Okay, so he was like a teenager.
Yeah, he was like a teen. Yeah, he was like a teenager. This is like there was like a young girl on the team, and he was making a move on her, and basically got really intimidating.
Okay. Wow. All right, that's funny.
As far back as I go, Aaron Paul.
You can't feel like he does have a bit of a legacy with BoJack as well, so you got to give him credits there.
Well, now he has that in his cap, which is the thing. He's tremendous in that role too. I would have a soft spot for old Toddy, but it's so odd that he plays a Todd there, given the relationship Jesse has with Todd. It's just anyway, but So
never trusted Todd, Dragon.
Well, that's the thing. So I'm not. Let me put it this way. I think compared to some other supporting characters this season, even though Jesse, again, had the show been centered around Jesse, I don't know how I feel about it way back when, but even this season, you see a progression in Jesse that again is fun. Even if I didn't,
you see him go from like totally just dismissing Walt to legitimately looking up to him as a mentor, and that's his arc for season 1, I think.
Certainly, and even so, the thing that saves Jesse for me, even if I can't invest him at this point as a character before that arc takes place by the end of things, is that I like when Jesse suffers. That's really when I'm like, oh man, this poor kid. I love the dynamic between the two of them. Their chemistry is what saves that. Not their chemistry, but yeah, their chemistry is what saves that. It's the of course, just Cranston. As we allow Cranston to shine dramatically, we have Jesse to bring out the comedy in him.
Sure. And yeah, you're right. The two just play like magnificently well off of each other for sure.
They're perfect opposites, and they're both at that crazy crossroads in how they see each other. Literally, just like Jesse falling out of a window into his life, and he's like, "Pinkman." It's just, and basically the thing that always sold it for me with their dynamic was we pulled a reverse Welcome Back Kotter, and we called it out, and it was so great. The whole I don't know what Welcome Back Kotter speech you have in mind, but just say it, a little speech, and of course the little speech is I want to cook meth with you. It's a complete left turn from what Jesse was thinking of, and thinking all sorts of shenanigans, the almighty coin flip runner, and and of course, they have their wonderful moments where basically any way you slice, especially in season 1, science bails them out of all their jams, and Jesse's that's where the bond is. It's ultimately it's almost like a soul thing too. It's where ultimately the dynamic affords these two characters second chances at the teacher-student relationship, and which ultimately blooms into kind of a father-son relationship as the series goes on. It's a very unconventional dynamic, mind you, a very unconventional pair, but it works wonders.
Yeah.
And of course, carrying a barrel instead of rolling it always just cracks me up. It's just so funny. And could have rolled it. Okay,
so let's here's the hard part, Dragon. Let's get into the bad. And I feel like this is going to be easier in this season than it will be for you know what? I take that back. The easiest is going to be season 2.
Yeah.
But this is not going to be easy, but let's start with the thing that's kind of out of the writer's hands, which is the writer's strike.
Yes. So for those who may not be aware, many people might not be aware, it's been years. So when some people might look at Breaking Bad and let's say they do a binge on Netflix or what have you. They do a binge of the episodes and they think, man, every episode's pretty much like a patented 13 or change depending on when we get to the whole the breaking it up in 2 by the end of things. But
is it consistently 13 from 2 to 4?
If I recall, it's pretty much consistently 13. I want to say 2 to 4, it's 13. And then we get, I forget if it is even
8 apiece.
Yeah, I think it's 8 apiece. Yeah, but it has to. So I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. But of course, so why is the first season so short? Well, so from 2007 to 2008, which essentially is when the show's happening, season 1 got preempted. They got essentially, the picket lines were drawn and everything. We had this kind of stop the writing process, and deadlines have to be met and episodes are filmed. So essentially, from what I understand, Tiki, the plan was to end season 1 after the Tuco story, as in Grilled was going to be the finale of season 1. Which I think is more complete story. I don't mind where we end things here, but if you look at it, that's the one nitpick I have on season 1 is that it does feel a little incomplete, especially given how we start season 2.
The cliffhanger of season 1 never really felt right to me.
Because it's not supposed to be a cliffhanger.
Exactly. It's a decent kind of oh shit, Walt's a little over his head, you know, but...
Which we already know that.
Right, exactly. But it's not necessarily oh my god, I can't fucking wait to see what happens next.
It plays, but it could have played better.
You know what? I almost feel like they could have played it a little better if they would have just worked in a little bit more like if Tuco would have given them some sort of a suspicious glance or something. But in the moment, Tuco just very much plays it off you're my boys, yo,
Yep. See you next week, Eisenberg.
Right, exactly. I feel like if there was a little bit more oh shit, you just saw me do that, then I feel like it would have been more of a cliffhanger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's the thing. Again, I want to be clear. It does play, but again, just I kind of see, and I don't know if they made changes because of the strike. So I don't know. I can't authoritatively said Grilled was absolutely where it was going to end. But if it did, Grilled would be an excellent season 1 ending.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'm sure we'll get to him more in season 2, but props to Raymond Cruz.
Of course. My God. More. It's going to be more Tuco. We kind of split Tuco up here, but we're going to get the Tuco a little bit towards the end of things here. But
sure.
More Tuco at a kind of front end next season, folks.
All right. So let's talk about the thing that the writers did have a little bit of control over. That is Unfortunately, Dragon, I think the element of the show that even throughout all 5 seasons, they didn't quite nail down, especially in Walt Jr.'s case, the family.
Okay, so it's a rocky start for the supporting cast. So honestly, believe it or not, and I've always defended this, so I have things to say on Skylar, but honestly, not this season. I have no problems with Skylar in season 1. I've never had.
I really don't either. And honestly, like with Skylar in season 2, it's going to be an interesting conversation because from a story perspective, I absolutely think they had to do it that way. So that'll be an interesting conversation to have when we get there. But go ahead.
Sorry, well, here, I want to get this in there because this is a principle I've always kind of held dear when it comes to TV. I've always kind of noticed this, is that there's like a roller coaster effect on TV series many a time with supporting cast, with character likability. And again, obviously it varies from person to person, but in my experience, Dexter is always my example. In that there are characters I like and characters I don't like. And honestly, from season to season, it shifts.
I can totally see that with Dexter.
Exactly, like LaGuerta. I liked her in some seasons. I did not like her in others.
Masuka for me was the ultimate version of that.
Exactly. So and also a little bit of Quinn, but yeah. Anyway,
Joey Quinn was absolutely a character I didn't like at first, but I kind of like gradually got a liking to.
Now, the good news is, for me, ultimately, I think Breaking Bad, it's a little bit more of a straight shot, as in, ultimately, as we get, like, by season 3 onward, I think we're pretty much all in good shape.
I think with the progression, Dragon, it's pretty much like season 2, Hank gets redeemed. Season 3, Marie gets redeemed to a certain extent. Season 4, Skylar gets redeemed. And season 5, I guess Walt Jr. I've never really been a fan of Walt
come on,
Jr.
Was good in season 1. He had a great scene in season 2.
I mean, he had like a great scene, but he was never a compelling presence, and I always just I don't know, like look, props to RJ.
Let's break it down a little bit. Should we build the Walt Jr. or do you want to start there?
Let's start with Walt Jr. because he is, to me, like probably the thing that's hardest to go back and rewatch with this show just as a whole.
Well, here's the thing about Walt Jr. So Walt Jr., just looking at season 1 with him, is that he's mainly a symbol before he's a character in season 1, if that makes any sense. In that, he's like, for example, the only time Walt Jr. really made impact on me was during the intervention scene where they're all trying to tell Walt to get the chemotherapy, where it's like where he's just the thing that really plays for me in that scene is Walt is really crushed hearing his son kind of speak to him this way. But the main thing Walt Jr. has in his pocket for a season is that, of course, he has cerebral palsy, and the assumed reason is that possibly is the root of the financial woes of the White family, and basically is a symbol for family. Here's the thing, the epiphany I had looking back on things with this is that
he's absolutely a symbol. I'm not going to argue with you there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, is that I feel as a symbol he works, but you're right. There was a character. I think he picks up steam as we go along. I grow a great fondness for Walt Jr. as we go along. But in season 1, there's really nothing there outside of like he's a little angsty. He's like, my dad doesn't want to get chemo, and I'm mad about it.
right.
And outside the symbolic,
honestly, Dragon, he didn't really give up the angst for most of this. Like I think honestly, the first time I really felt like I was in his corner was the moment where they tell him about Walt and he just flat out denies it. Like that was the first moment in the whole series where I was like, oh, okay, like I am on this kid's side.
I mean, for me, Tiki, I would argue Walt Jr.'s at his best seasons 4 and 5. Season 4 in particular, that's when we do the really great Walt Jr. episode. That's when he really comes into fray. That's where, with Walt Jr.'s birthday.
Walt Jr. Oh, right.
It's the episode.
I wouldn't really consider that a Walt Jr. episode per se, but it does have a really fucking fantastic Walter Jr. cold open.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's that, but I was meaning is that it's the big scene. It's the whole event of the day. It's Walter Jr.'s birthday, and we have Walt talking to his son very openly and very honestly. That's where we get the backstory of the whole kind of father-son relationships in the Walt family, the White family. But anyway, so I mean, just looking at it here, it's just kind of a thought occurs to me is that I think Jr. hurts Heisenberg's self-worth. But Walt loves his son.
Yeah, for sure.
Because again,
so
Walter Jr. just by proxy, he just kind of represents weakness in Walt's eyes to some extent. But again, the father loves his son. But again, just like the representation of the power struggle within his father is always held back financially, and I guess in some other ways by Walt Jr. It's always the constant reminder of your family's not well off, your family's not all together, but he loves them. The conflict.
Yeah, and Dragon, I totally get what you're saying there. Like I said, I really do think it's I honestly hate to say it because he does deliver some kick-ass moments in season 5, but I really think it took RJ Mitty a long time to grow comfortably into the role.
And that's fair. And again, I'd say 4 onwards where he kind of finds his stride. I think that's where we actually do things with Walt Jr. And then we get to the ultimate peak in season 5 with him. Like that's how we.
And I have no problems with him in season 5. Yeah,
exactly. So. And by the way, I also want to kind of get in there too is that again, like physically, again, as I said, we kind of physicalize Walt's weakness, he feels internally through Walt Jr. But the ultimate lesson that we convey, I think, by the end of the series of Walt Jr., the very important lesson is to Walt. Walt, we know Walt's wrong. Ultimately, is that it's not a bad thing. Like Walter Jr. Again, he becomes a nice young man. He was made the most of life, man. He didn't let anything hold him back. He even kind of calls him out on in the first season. So. Basically, Walt kind of needs to learn a little bit from his son there that it's not a bad thing to need help and kind of work through stuff.
Sure,
it's not a bad thing. You don't need like asking for help, but basically being overly prideful might be a detrimental thing. So let's talk about Hank. So Hank for me, he was the ultimate example for my.
You don't want to build to Hank, are you sure?
Okay, let's talk Marie.
I'm just saying, there's a lot more to talk about with Hank than
fine. Okay, so Marie. So here's I kind of noticed.
Honestly, Dragon, the thing that's always stuck out to me about Marie from the get-go is she has like the most boring character introduction ever. It's just like she's just offhandedly introduced at a dinner party, like, "Oh, this is my sister Marie." And it's so like nonchalant, like, okay, I guess she's a character now. All right, okay. But Marie is obviously a character where I really do feel like she did a big like heel turn in terms of like the audience really coming around on her. But in season 1, I don't even want to say she was bad. I just think her presence was just kind of pointless. And absolutely, her presence is more than merited within the course of the series. But I really don't think it's until season 3 where she really gets a lot of meat in terms of stuff to do. And I really think, that's more the problem with her and not so much the character herself. It's just that in terms of active stuff to do in the plot, she is pretty much benched until Hank has his accident in the hospital, That's really where she starts to come alive.
Certainly. No, I had a realization with Marie looking back on her. Because I haven't really looked back on her like this far. It's been a while. So here's what I realized with Marie. So Marie is kind of the biggest kind of anchor around the season with the supporting characters in that basically she is the representation. We're spinning our wheels trying to give Marie a reason to be in the show, if you really think about it. Because here's why. Let me tell you why we need Marie in the show. It's a very simple reason. Okay, we need someone to be. We can't have Hank be Walt's brother, otherwise it won't work. That's too intimate a relationship. He needs to be a brother-in-law. How can we make that happen? Well, Skylar has to have a sibling, so let's make it a sister. And so that's the main reason Marie's in the show. Basically for that reason, and also 4 Days Out. We need her to be an X-ray technician for 4 Days Out.
That makes sense. Yeah,
those are the only 2 reasons she's in the show. And of course, like we won't go fully into it now, but we tee up one of the unfortunate things of Marie's character because again, as I said earlier, we're spinning our wheels with her. We're trying to come up with stuff for her to do. We're trying to.
Yeah, let's. I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, we'll get more into detail about it later, but the shoplifting arc is, I think, probably the biggest egg on Breaking Bad's whole face.
Yeah, honestly. So in season, we'll get into the reasons exactly why. But, later. But so ultimately, we tee up the kleptomania thing with the whole baby tiara, the whole baby shower tiara gift thing here. That's where we started. And also, I completely forgot this. She steals a pair of purple shoes. That's the first. It's really like the first thing she steals.
If that is the first thing she steals, then I kind of approve of that on like a thematic, like setting the character level.
Well, here's the thing. I'm sorry. I can't remember. I want to say, I don't know how in advance she bought that tiara thing. All I know is I remember seeing the scene where she's shopping for shoes and she's talking to Hank, and it was before the baby shower. And she kind of leaves her white shoes and she takes these purple shoes. I'm pretty sure she doesn't pay for it, looking at that scene with eagle eyes. Like, does she pay? No, she doesn't. She doesn't pay for those shoes.
Right. Yeah.
That was where they introduced that idea. Anyway, so ultimately, we do this kleptomania thing just in season 1 alone to keep Skylar busy. That's the thing. Skylar, while not bad, and I like that she's proactive, and I like that, again, she's very understandably concerned over Walt, the cancer diagnosis.
She's honestly got some Wexler upside in season 1. She's a supportive wife. You know what I mean?
Certainly. Again, she's unintentionally keeping him down in places. Don't get me wrong. The whole well, that's the card we don't use. But again, she doesn't understand that. But here's the thing: we need to keep her busy and distracted at every turn with Marie. That's the problem. So again, like, we're dragging Skylar down a little bit with Marie because we need to keep him. We need to do something with Marie. We need to keep Skylar out of Walt's hair so we can do meth stuff.
Oh, God.
See, that's ultimately what it is, and I think ultimately the point of the kleptomania stuff is that we're trying to do something with criminality, and we're trying to introduce that through the family.
Well, it definitely, obviously, it kind of, like, the broader purpose is, the theme that everyone breaks bad, obviously, that's what the main crux of it is, but...
So the point being, we're trying to we're getting Marie busy working at shows a lot.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about Big Hank.
ASAP Schrader, all right.
ASAP.
I'm sorry, I keep doing that. I keep calling him ASAP. I know.
And remember,
I'm sorry.
you know what ASAP means too. But
no, I don't. You're right. All right. But
you thought that was like a nickname. I remember that was the dumbest thing you ever told me.
I did think it was a nickname. Right.
Not a nickname. Anyway. So he's not even an ASAP yet.
Oh God. Anyways.
Okay, the point being Hank. Let's talk about NoHo Hank. Let's give him another nickname. Let's just call him.
Oh, God.
No.
No, let's not. Okay.
I'm kidding.
Oh, God. Now I'm just picturing fucking Dean Norris playing NoHo Hank.
Oh, God. Anyway.
Oh, hey, it's my buddy Barry.
I saw Dean Norris.
Barry?
Hey, Barry, how's it going?
Oh, God.
Come on, Barry. Come on.
All right.
Let's drink some Schrader Brow, Barry. Anyway,
so you're absolutely right that Hank is a roller coaster of a character for sure.
Definitely would not fly today, I don't think. At least season 1, Hank.
Yeah, I haven't gone back and watched season 1 in a while, but I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, Hank ultimately, and the thing that kind of threw me off the guy in the beginning, again, he grows, honestly, Hank always, when Hank got smarter, when he was investigating the RV, he kind of had like a white whale, like a literal white whale to chase in a sense.
I mean, the thing with Hank is I feel like he's one of those characters that not even improves season to season. I feel like gradually he gets more interesting every scene he's in to a certain extent. Does that make sense?
I mean, it does. And again, for me, it was ever since he was on the RV hunt onwards, I was completely on his side from that point on, where that's when we actually made good use of Hank, and we didn't. And here, I think I've nailed down what the problem might have been. Because, again, one, he was always kind of like the non-PC jock, which always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Putting him in contrast to Walt, I was like, I don't like this guy in contrast to Walt. I love Walt, but I don't like Hank.
Well, it's like one of those things where it's like, I would not get along with this guy in real life. Yeah. No, sir.
That's just the taste thing. But I think the actual problem is that, so his story role is to help create Walt, and to do that, we have to make Hank really oblivious. So that's what I'm saying. Tiki, ultimately, when I look at the problems of supporting guys, and this is also, I know we're in the bad section here, but even looking at the bad sections, I get where the logic is, why we're doing these things. Walt Jr. not so much, but like Hank and Murray, they serve a story purpose, which kind of makes them look. Again, it's them learning as they go. It's like we have to start somewhere, and then we get more sophisticated with how we can make this sing in the storytelling, you know. And Dean Norris, I think, also his personality, just as a performer, but in general, like Dean Norris is a guy, I get a sense that he grows on. I think he's a little abrasive at first, but he grows on. You grow to love the guy. So the more time we spend with Hank, and the more time we make him not the oblivious guy, saying, "Oh man, if only Hank knew that he was that he was like underestimating Walt and just kind of doing stuff like, remember when he did the poor Hugo? That was the moment where Hank was like, oh, screw you, Hank. Like that poor Hugo the janitor. You ruin that guy's life without remorse because of pot and because that poor guy.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
All
right. So yeah, fair to say that the family definitely gets better as the show goes along. And like I said, Dragon, season 2 is going to be relatively easy. Like, I mean, spoiler alert, Dragon, get ready, folks. It's going to be the deep dive into Skylar White. And I want to just preface this right off the bat. I know there's been a lot of Skylar defense recently. And I do generally agree story-wise with what they do with Skylar in season 2, but it's not fun to watch. Let's put it that way. Anyway,
so yeah, let's talk. Let's talk the breaking.
Okay, end the breaking.
Breaking.
Do you want it? I should have gone over with this with you pre-show, but do you want this to say just end the breaking or the breaking?
I mean, in this case, maybe the breaking might be suitable, but
fair enough.
I mean, and the breaking as our title, that makes sense. But it's the breaking, we're in the breaking section. But,
all right.
Okay. So the breaking. So anyway, so let's just talk some of these mind breaking kind of moments that in the tomes of television history. So let's start with, again, I think the most eye catching chronologically thing. We had the hydrofluoric acid in the bathtub. It was a big moment.
Yeah. Big moment because it set the stage for the style of violence that this show was going for, which was visceral, it was pulp, it was over the top, it was a little bit cartoony, but still gross. It's very, very much its own thing. You know what I mean? It's like when you see violence like this, you almost kind of have to think of Breaking Bad, I feel like it kind of trailblazed this kind of violence.
It did, and I think the reason it did that was, this was the big, irreverent, tone-setting statement that we're going to call out all the crime shows, with our world, and like in a real-world setting, how would it go? Or maybe, not all criminals are super geniuses, like on CSI and everything. They're not always like thinking a step ahead. Sometimes the criminals don't always think things through, and we use this as a way not only to show, like, sometimes criminals screw up. That's how they get caught. Which makes sense, and that's why that kind of has stakes within the criminals that we're kind of rooting for here. And we also use it as a way to demonstrate the Walt and Jesse dynamic so perfectly, is that Walt's all about the details and that in chemistry matters versus Jesse, who is just very much, again, it's the empathy of the situation. Where like Jesse's
plastic bathtub in a thing where where the goal of the tub is specifically to dissolve something in.
That's why you use the plastic tub, and I love it every time Walt explains to Jesse why he screwed up. I love it, God. And just that's my favorite bit of the Walt and Jesse dynamic, just in terms of performance. And just, again, the big takeaway too is that there are consequences and complications, and we represent that. It sets the tone in so many ways of how the show's going to operate with the violence, more so in the aftermath of the violence. Like, okay, something happened that was bound to happen, and now we got to deal with it.
Right.
Let's talk about, I think, probably the single most important episode in season 1 of Breaking Bad. We got to talk about the bags in the river, more accurately, the crazy eight of it all.
Yeah, I mean, this was like the moment, Dragon. And the interesting thing is that, like, I feel like the show hadn't even found itself yet by the time we get to this moment. It really, like the supporting characters aren't there. The overarching, like, antagonists aren't there. Even the visceral, violence that we get with the bathtub aren't there. It's just pure, raw, unfiltered moral ambiguity.
Oh, yeah. It's, the old adage, and I think it never has it ever fit better than with Breaking Bad. It takes 3 to get hooked on Breaking Bad. It takes 3 episodes. Seriously, it does. It takes 3 episodes. When you get to this point, that's when you're hooked. That's when you're addicted. That's what happened to me.
I'd be hard pressed if you weren't addicted after the ending of episode 1, frankly. But
well, I mean, sure. Look, don't get me wrong. It's great. But I'm
joking, Dragon. The ending of episode 1 is quite silly.
Yeah, of course. The whole let's just say Heisenberg's. Let's just say Walt's knocking.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh God. Oh no. Oh God. That's. Oh.
Yeah. You know, when
I'm
you think
sorry.
about it too.
No, don't explain it. Don't explain it.
Okay, anyway.
Oh, that broke me for a second, Dragon.
Anyway. Okay, anyway, so
I turned into an 8th grader there for a second.
No, I get that. So, in all seriousness, though, so it takes 3 episodes to get you hooked. And anyway, so episode 3, this is the big turning point for Walter White. And this is him killing someone pre-Heisenberg before we have like kind of the bluster and kind of the ego at play with
Yeah, exactly
as a defense mechanism. Where in this case we have a wonderful episode-long build-up and hesitation to killing a man. He's like weighing the moral consequences of it.
Think about that versus the prison montage.
Oh God, yes,
right?
Yes. Oh God. And I love of course, for me, the moment that just the moment where the episode the moment that hooked me on the show, the moment that truly like just had me was the plate realization.
Oh yeah.
After we have that wonderful conversation about the Tampico, the whole Tampico bonding thing, basically Crazy 8, his real name's Domingo, which we now officially definitely know, if not from this episode, from Better Call Saul, we know the origin of the Crazy 8 name. Tampico was the furniture place, right?
Yeah.
It was like furniture, and they sold the crib that was Walt Jr.'s, and now is going to be Holly's, but. It's just after they're bonding, and Walt's legitimately considering, maybe I can let him go. And he's offering to help me out here. I mean, again, I might be able to let this guy go again if he's thinking the business sense here. And then when he's cleaning up the mess and everything, he's kind of has that thought. You know what? There's just that lingering doubt, and again, Walt being smart. He puts the pieces of the plate together. This is one of those great visual images, and you see that one missing piece. And my favorite bit is that the thing that hooked me was Cranston's reaction, because it's that universal reaction of, oh no. It's like it's the fact that Walt, he had one person to confide in this whole episode. This is the first person he's ever told about his cancer diagnosis to a man who's supposed to die. Which, how much more fitting can you get? A dying man to a possibly dying man.
Wait. So that was before the family knew about it?
Yes, that was way before that.
Wow. I actually kind of forget the fact that he hid it from his family.
Yes, the end of episode 3 is him going to Skylar after the whole night of all that horribleness happening. He says, Skylar, there's something I need to tell you. And episode 4 is Cancer Man, and that's basically that's the little. Gotcha. I think that's when we do the pillow thing. I think we do the pillow thing in episode 5, maybe. The point being, that's when we talk about it. So he confide. Dying man confiding in the dying man that he absolutely must kill, and that realization of like that missing plate, just like that strife on Cranston, just like, oh, I don't want to do this. Why? Like, please don't. It's kind of the precursor to the Jane thing of it all. Like a moment you're gonna have to do, even though you don't want to. And it's a gruesome, brutal scene, geniusly composed with the bike lock of it all. And
it's brutal, but like I said, it's not really like visceral and pulp like most of the violence in the show.
And also, not without consequence. Walt gets stabbed a few times, and like just trying to drive it in there when he puts his leg up, he gets stabbed with the piece of plate.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the piece of plate being Walt's humanity, and that he offered the man a sandwich, and that sandwich almost killed him. Death by sandwich. It's real.
It's kind of a theme of the shows that we talk about, Dragon.
It tends to be, yes. Death by pleasantry. It's anyway.
God.
Well, next season we're gonna have Death by Taco, but
Oh, that's very true.
Or attempted murder by Taco, but anyway. All right, let's see. So, speaking of the storytelling, how great it is, I got to talk about the evolution and logic of story, particularly the gray matter of it all. Every time we talk about Better Call Saul, I always bring up the gray matter thing.
So, I'm honestly not a big fan of Gray Matter, the episode, but I totally acknowledge its like utmost relevancy and importance within the story itself. I just think that the episode itself is a little dull, especially because basically Dragon, when I'm watching, I'm like, but when are we gonna get to the fireworks factory? Because it's like we already saw that, like, the cat's in the bag, the bag's in the river. Then we really slow down the story for 2 episodes. But yeah, like you said, the logic of like, okay, like he has an out, like there we go. It's like he, like right as the series is just getting going, he's basically got a get out of jail free card in terms of his financial situation. He's got
5 episodes
got a clean
in
slate. Yeah. But I feel like the show has established his ego and established, more importantly, his pride, which I feel like when we look back on Walter White, Dragon, pride is like the word that defines him.
Something I noticed, and this really aided. Of course, the pride thing's always been with the Schwartz, and I love that in season 1 we kind of tee up like the intimacy of the pride thing with Gretchen. We kind of see a few flashes in those classroom flashbacks, but the thing that really got me with it, I completely forgot about, was Elliot's job offer. So Elliot offered him. Basically, the way Elliot brought it up really smooth, like, "Hey, Walt, I'd like you to work with me." And of course, Walt hesitates not because of pride. He hesitates because he thinks it's an actual job offer, and like, I want to, but I'm dying. And he doesn't know that. So he's about to tell him that he's dying of cancer, and then essentially Elliot, he's being a little cryptic about it, but Elliot basically kind of it says, we have excellent health insurance, and that's the thing. That crushing moment with Walt. That's the crushing moment of prideful recognition of Skylar told him.
Yes.
And this is a pity off. The moment the pity came into play, and he, again, even though things were complicated with Elliot, again, he co-founded a company together, and they were friends, and they were friends for the whole ramen of it all. And just the Schwartzes and the pride and the inferiority, and the idea too is ultimately what we're going to come to realize is that Gretchen, he had a relationship with Gretchen, and he visited her parents. And her parents, essentially, they were very opulent. Again, she came from money. And this made Walt feel small and kind of inferior by comparison. He basically hung on to that feeling. He broke up with her. And the big takeaway is that he made a series of life choices which led to 50 years of misery. Well, not 50, but led to by age 50, he's not living it up the way he could have had he just kind of stuck with had pride and just like inferiority not overtaken him. Had he not made the scared choice, his life might be a little bit more grandiose. He might be in the empire business,
Sure.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. It's like these evolutions of story, and of course, the thing that was always kind of talked up so well is that they let the character dictate the story, and that when they're in the writers' room, Vince Gilligan always talks about this, that Walter White dictated where the story went. When they kind of reached, okay, well, here's a Deus Ex Machina. How do we get out of this? Where no, we don't. Well, how do we get out of this? Well, what would Walt do in the situation? Well, Walt wouldn't take the money. Why wouldn't he take the money? Because everything fell into place so geniusly because of that. It's the ultimate go-to in storytelling. If you can't write your way out of this scene, then there's a problem with your story, and it becomes boring. He's going to be tripping over money all the time. We can't have that. Until season 5, we can sleep on the money.
Right. Oh God.
And again, like stuff like the Sudafed, the whole Sudafed thing, right? Like your average Joe, I guess the average criminal knows, like, hey, use Sudafed to make meth, so that's going to raise a lot of suspicion. So we can't have making copious amounts of meth without raising suspicion because they're going to buy all the Sudafed. Where, okay, what's their solution? Methylamine. We steal the barrel.
Yeah, and that stealing the barrel of methylamine is also kind of like a benchmark moment. Like I feel like that's like the moment that sort of like solidified Jesse and Walt working together.
Certainly. Also, one thing you mentioned with the Schwartz before we get to the kind of last thing is that I love the Schwartz. The Gray Matter Companies essentially is I know it came first, but just go with me on it. It's that it's kind of HHM before HHM. It's the omnipresent reminder, much like HHM is to Jimmy.
I mean, HHM does that fundamentally a lot better, but yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm not even saying that as a knock against Gray Matter. I'm just saying, like, HHM is just like, that is like the gold standard when it comes to what you just mentioned.
I mean, basically, it's that they're on the present reminders, but HHM's around a lot more. That's the difference. HHM's around from beginning to end, where Gray Matter's like, hey, we drop it in the bucket now and again because we can't work the Schwartzes in every episode, otherwise it's the Schwartz show.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about.
They should do a spin-off called "May the Schwartz Be With You."
Oh God. God. Anyway, let's talk Fulminated Mercury.
Okay. I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Right. So, so Fulminated Mercury, it's this is the real. Everyone always talks up the very infamous misnomer with Breaking Bad has always been, "I'm the one who knocks." That whole speech is like it's the tough guy speech, which really it's not. This is the tough guy moment for Walter White. This is the real "I am the one who knocks" scene for him. This Fulminated Mercury, like, this is not meth. That's his moment.
I mean, we'll get to the "I am the one who knocks," but I actually think Are you insinuating that moment is overrated? Because I think that moment is overrated.
No, I'm not saying it's over. I'm saying it's misidentified. I'm saying that people identify it as like a tough guy speech when no, it's not a tough guy speech.
It really isn't. It's more pathetic than anything else.
I'm saying everyone quotes it like people are quoting it like they should be. People are quoting it like it's the "Say My Name" scene when it's not.
Yeah. Even I'm guilty of that when I did my little Halloween costume thing.
Exactly. So that's
right.
Yes, the arrogance of youth, my friend.
right.
But yeah. So when you look back at the build-up to the Fulminated Mercury, so Walt forced Jesse into dealing with Tuco, which led to, of course, Jesse literally almost dying by money, where Tuco beat him almost half to death with a bag of money.
With a bag of money, yeah.
He almost died by money. How much more poetic and awesome and gritty can you get? And Walt just feeling so guilty about it because he pushed him into this, like, grow some effing balls, because he told him to, go deal with Tuco. This Walt drew in that episode. Walt drew the lines very clearly, and it kind of gets called back to like, you handle the business, I handle the chemistry, where Walt has to handle the business. Henceforth, the creation of Heisenberg, Walt's power fantasy. This is very interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Heisenberg thing really is what kind of like. Dragon, I feel like above anything else in this season, the Heisenberg alter ego is the most breaking part of this whole season, I think. Because it really just kind of like sets it up from the Mr. Chips to Scarface thing into something a little bit more mythic.
Totally. And of course, early in the season, I think one of the great quotes, the underrated quotes from Breaking Bad is, chemistry, basically about chemistry. Chemistry is about change, transformation. He's doing like a little light show. They spray him into the light, into the Bunsen burner thing. He was given the initial speech to the chemistry class.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, ultimately the big sell is that Walt's cleverness and his guts really impresses Tuco because again, was that whole that wonderful diss that is the whole like I beat the crap out of your guy, and you bring me more meth. There's one thing you're wrong about. This is not meth. And he just throws and creates a giant explosion. I love that we set up the Fulminated Mercury in Act 1, and it came back. It isn't great. And then again, basically, Walt has a bag full of bombs in his hand.
right.
Gets his way, and Tuco loves this guy. He loves him. It's not like, and it's just perfect.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
of course,
great.
Walt. And then Cranston, earned his Emmys. Cranston earned his Emmys when he gets back into the car, and we do there was a link up to this episode. We see him like walking bald and everything. Now we circle back to him and walking to the car. He's unleashing the energy, just like unleashing it.
Yeah,
all the tension, all the energy, all the fear. So just excellent moment. Again, like the birth of Heisenberg. It's a television worthy moment.
All right, so I think that's about it. Dragon, final thoughts.
Well, thoughts. I mean, as I said earlier, it's a very solid start to a series. Very much, honestly, I think it's very much Walt's season. I think Jesse, while he is a player, and I know we do like a whole episode of Jesse's family, but really Jesse's story comes in I think season 2 becomes equally Jesse and Walt's season.
Well, season 2, I feel like it's almost more Jesse.
I mean, I think you're right about that. I'm just saying, Walt clearly does stuff, but you're right though. I think it's more in Jesse's favor given the payoff.
I feel like season 3 is when we really do even out the two leads. I mean, you're right. Walt is definitely present in season 2. I don't want to make it seem like he's not, but I'm saying like in terms of the narrative, I feel like Jesse's side really drives the narrative.
No, I think you're absolutely right about that, Tiki. I'm just saying I think by proxy that. So yeah, I like that season 1's Walt's season, then season 2 we get more Jesse, and then we kind of even things out as we go forward in a sense.
Yeah, right.
So it's again, it's amazing how Breaking Bad. Anyway, so it's amazing as Breaking Bad, it just kind of continues. I've always, as big and amazing as Breaking Bad got, I always have had a fondness for the strength of the story in season 1. That's always been the point. Every time everyone talks about the favorite season of Breaking Bad, I know season 5 is usually a go-to, and it's great, and they have season 3 as well, but it's always like, I can't argue the simplicity of it all with season 1. The elements are there. We build to like a reaction that births the rest of the show in kind of the chemical reaction sense. We birth the rest of the show through like the chain of events that happens in season 1. It's just something really kind of wonderful about that.
Yeah, sure. yeah, my final thoughts on this whole thing. Like I said, Dragon, I really did. I'm so glad that I jumped into this when I did, because wasn't first season, but I did jump in watching live in the second season, and I mean, I really do think that indie movie point you made was very, very apt and astute, Dragon. I really do think that this kind of had all the makings of just sort of like some catchy, indie movie that had like an intriguing cast and an interesting stunt casting behind it. And it really is crazy how, like, looking back on it, like, it is all those things in terms of like just being that indie movie quality. And to look back and think like, wow, this is really the genesis to, not just one, but two of the greatest TV shows, arguably, of all time. So yeah, humble beginnings indeed. All right. Well, folks, the high has worn off. And much like Walter White, we're out of time, but have an A1 day in the land of enchantment. Until the next visit to the ABQ-verse, when we talk the good, the bad, and the breaking.
Cow houses?
Heisenberg wants us to relax. I'm relaxed.
I am